What's up, guys? It is your boy Samoan Fan 101, and today we are going to be reviewing Ant-Man. Now, I say today, but, you know, same day earlier, but you guys know what I mean. I don't need to explain myself. We're going to be reviewing Ant-Man, which, believe it or not, Avengers Age of Ultron was not the final film of Phase 2 in the MCU. It actually was Ant-Man, which you might think, that's pretty anticlimactic, but Ant-Man served kind of as a transitional film between one giant monster hit with Age of Ultron to another giant movie hit with Captain America Civil War. Now, little thing about this movie. Originally, Ant-Man was actually going to be it was directed in this film by Peyton Reed. Peyton Reed was not the first choice. In fact, we kind of had a Thor Dark World kind of thing where the director, sorry about that, the director was actually changed. In fact, the original actor, great. It's 8 o'clock, give me a break, guys. The original director of the film was actually going to be Edgar Wright. Now, clearly, there were some creative differences between Kevin Feige, the people and the powers that be at the MCU, and Edgar Wright and how he makes his films. Now, is this like a Patty Jenkins kind of deal, where we replace one actor for another and we end up getting a shitty film? Not in this case. Not in this case. Because here's the thing. Edgar Wright, and, you know, nothing against Edgar Wright, but, you know, Edgar Wright, he's more known for having more flash than substance. Not saying that's always a bad thing. He's made some good films before. Some good comedy films like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. But he also made Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. You're probably wondering, well, wasn't that a big hit? Wouldn't people love it everywhere? Well, yeah, they did, but here's the thing. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, if you looking back on the film, there are a lot of things wrong with that film. Specifically, the main character, Scott Pilgrim himself. If you really look at it, I know he's supposed to be likable, but the guy's a terrible main character. Got a girlfriend, he cheats on her, and does a bunch of stupid things, and a lot of dumb shit in that film. And it worked for the time, it definitely worked for me, but looking back, it doesn't nearly hold as much value. So yeah, Scott Pilgrim. Edgar Wright was always known for more flash than substance. Enter Peyton Reed. Reed, of course, hang on. Sorry for that. Peyton Reed was also a long-time film director in his 50s. And he's done some feature films like Bring It On, The Breakup, and Yes Man, which of course starred Jim Carrey. He's also done some TV work, like the old Back to the Future TV animated TV show, The Weird Al Show back in 1997, and a couple others. But, so yeah, granted, he wasn't always the greatest actor. He wasn't always the greatest director. Not all of his films were great. Like, you know, some of the films were not that good, but somehow Peyton Reed, it's like, even when you take a director who's not that great, this is a case where a gamble actually worked, and they took a director who doesn't always have the best track record, but put him with the right people and give him the right set of tools to work with. The guy can make a good film. And clearly that's what he did here with Ant-Man, what he would later do with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, after explaining that whole thing, let's get on with the actual story on what's going on. The story is, I kind of related a lot to the first Thor film, because it has a lot of similarities. Differences, obviously, but several similarities. It starts out, again, with a flashback. My god, how many flashbacks have we seen? Starting to see a pattern here. Where back in 1989, Hank Pym, who of course was the original Ant-Man, resigned from S.H.I.E.L.D. after apparently they tried to replicate what he calls the Pym particle, which is what allows Hank Pym to shrink down to size and become Ant-Man. You know, the whole shrinking tech thing. That's what it allows, and apparently S.H.I.E.L.D. went behind his back to try to replicate his formula. And of course, we see Howard Stark there, who founded S.H.I.E.L.D. We see a much older Peggy Carter there. And we also see a guy by the name of Mitchell Carson, who I think was head of like a weapons division. Or science division. I don't know what he was. And, you know, and clearly Peggy was really the only one that really didn't know what they were doing. Or if she did, she didn't think it would go as far as it did. Basically, long story short, this pisses Hank Pym off, especially since they allude to his wife's death, which, as he tells later in the film, took place a couple years before that. And apparently, you know, he leaves S.H.I.E.L.D. We cut to the present day, which is some months after the events of Avengers: Age of Ultron. Hank Pym visits his old creation, Pymtech, which is what he founded after he left S.H.I.E.L.D. And he comes across a strange daughter, Hope Van Dyne, and a former protege of his named Darren Cross, played in this film by Corey Stoll. So yeah. They create the Yellow Jacket. Well, more specifically, Darren Cross creates the Yellow Jacket, which of course rivals the shrinking tech suit that Hank Pym had with the Ant-Man suit. And of course, this horrifies Pym because Darren Cross is willing to sell it to people who are less reputable, like Mitchell Carson. So that's what's going on with the Pym side. Then we cut to a guy named Scott Lang, who's played in this film by Paul Rudd. Lang was released from prison after he robbed his old job of $4 million to give back to people who apparently the former job being VistaCorp. They were apparently finding a sneaky way to steal money from people, and he was basically refunding it to the people that was stolen from. He went to prison. He gets out of it. He visits his daughter Cassie, played in this film by a young actress named Abby. God, what's her name? God, hang on, I gotta find her name here. It's one of those three name actresses. God, it's not showing it here. Where the hell are my notes? Abby Ryder Fortson. That's her name. So yeah, she's played by Abby Ryder Fortson in this film, and actually is a pretty decent child actress, and more than anything, she's charming because she's cute, and really, invokes being a little girl. He shows up, but he apparently has an estranged relationship from his ex-wife, who married a cop, or, well, not married, but is engaged to a cop, and obviously the cop has absolutely no love lost for Scott Lang, and the ex-wife is a little bit softer on him, but for the most part she's also harsh on him, saying, "Oh, maybe we'll talk about visitation," which, look, from a guy who just got out of prison and was well-meaning, is kind of shitty, I will say. In a couple small ways they don't come across that well, but that's not really their fault. They're just trying to be well-meaning parents, and they're kind of pissed off at him. So yeah, I'm clearly droning on too long. That's how you know it's nighttime. That, and then there's no light coming from my window. Okay, so long story short, when he got out of prison, he came up with his former cellmate Luis and two of his friends named Kurt and Dave, and they offer him a tip to rob a place, but he wants to go straight. And he gets a job at Baskin-Robbins. Baskin-Robbins fires his ass after finding out about him robbing VistaCorp, and eventually after some nudging, he takes the bait and eventually robs this place, which as it turns out, is Hank Pym's home, and Hank Pym organized the information as such to where he allowed Scott to steal the Ant-Man suit, which was in fact what he stole. That was in a safe in the basement of Hank Pym's home. Now, apparently Hope was not privy to any of this, because when Scott Lang goes for an accidental test run in the Ant-Man suit, he tries to return the suit, but Hope calls the police and has him arrested. Now, obviously, I hate that. The cop that is engaged to his wife as well as his partner seriously do not trust this guy, because now they're like, yeah, this guy's not to be trusted. Pym breaks him out and trains him to be the Ant-Man in order to steal the Yellow Jacket from Darren Cross. After, again, some nudging and telling him, giving him more information, specifically about why the Yellow Jacket in his mind is being created, what it can do, and it also adds more insight as to why Hope is not on the best of terms with their dad. It's because many years earlier, back in 1987, 2 years before Hank Pym left S.H.I.E.L.D., his wife, who convinced him to join him on his mission since she became the Wasp, went into the quantum realm, which basically means she's shrunk for all existence until she entered a realm where so many physics are just gone, and basically they think she's dead. So, Hank pretty much shut himself off from Hope ever since. And even though he means well, she doesn't really know all the details, because she believed at first that she died in a plane accident, and later on she realized that he wasn't telling her the truth, but he refused to tell her. Eventually he did, when a confrontation, because Hope does not have any, well, for lack of a better word, hope in Scott Lang. But it wasn't until Lang explains that he was chosen to be Ant-Man because he's expendable, and if something bad ever happens, Hope can at least get the hell out of there and still do whatever she wants. And Scott knows that this could be make or break for him. So they all come to an understanding. He becomes better at training in the Ant-Man suit. He steals a piece of technology from what is supposed to be one of Howard Stark's old facilities, which ends up, of course, being the Avengers compound that we saw at the end of Avengers: Age of Ultron, which is quite hilarious. He fights the Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie, in what was actually a very entertaining fight. He gets the technology, and even though Darren Cross by this point is already has word that something might happen, he has security tightened up. Ant-Man gets his three prison robbing buddies in on the whole plot, and they go in to break the suit. Things seemingly go well, but apparently Darren Cross saw this coming, especially since invading an Avengers facility, word travels fast. A whole confrontation happens. During the heist, which is basically what this is, it's a heist for the Yellow Jacket. Scott Lang, his mission is also to destroy Pymtech and just completely eradicate its ass. And a whole confrontation happens. Darren Cross, while escaping, dons the Yellow Jacket suit and fights Ant-Man at first a serious way, but then later in a hilarious way in a little girl's playset with Thomas the Tank Engine. My God. And Scott realizes that in order to destroy the Yellow Jacket suit, he's got to shrink between the atoms, which means he's got to go subatomic and destroy the suit. He eventually is entered into the quantum realm, but thanks to these discs that Hank Pym created for him, one can shrink, one can grow in size. He replaces he replaces the modulator, basically, the regulator. He replaces the regular regulator, and replaces it with the blue disc, which makes him, which, thanks to his suit, he is now able to go back into normal. Which, of course, it begs the question, does that mean that Hank Pym's wife is alive? Well, we don't know that, but it does leave things open, especially since we saw Ant-Man and the Wasp. So, after all that, things finally cool down. Lang's family, specifically, well, or should I say, his ex-wife, his daughter, and the engaged fiance, who's a cop, all figure out exactly that Scott Lang is Ant-Man and actually saved everyone. And things, you know, they patch things up. Hope and Scott seemingly enter some kind of relationship. And Luis tells him that apparently that the Falcon is looking for Scott Lang, which of course leads into the events of Captain America's Civil War. Then we see a mid-credit scene where Hank shows Hope a prototype suit of a prototype version of the Wasp suit, which of course alludes to Ant-Man and the Wasp. And in the post-credit scene, we see a scene that's pretty much taken out of the Captain America Civil War film, and Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, tells him that there's someone who can help, obviously alluding to Ant-Man. So what do I think of this film? It's a very good film. That's what I think. This is a very good film, very similar to Thor, and that's kind of both the film's benefit and, in a small little way, its detriment. So let's get to the casting. For the most part, the casting is pretty good. I will admit, when I heard there was an Ant-Man film going to be making, I thought it was going to suck, because I was like, there's no way in hell that they're going to make this film look good. And then the film looked good. And part of why I thought it was going to suck was because they got Paul Rudd. Now, granted, I didn't know it was going to be how much of a comedy was going to be in it. But here's the thing. Paul Rudd was always known for, he was always known for comedy roles. For example, I first watched Paul Rudd actually in his very first on-screen film appearance, or should I say major on-screen film appearance, as as Tommy Doyle in Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. Later on, he was in the Romeo plus Juliet film with, that was the one with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. He was in The 40-Year-Old Virgin, again, another comedy. He was in Anchorman, Legend of Ron Burgundy, again, a comedy. And what I remember him most... Oh, he was also Knocked Up. Well, what I remember him most as was in the movie Role Models as Danny, who was absolutely funny. I mean, Role Models was fucking hilarious. It was a fantastic, hilarious film. And I was thinking, really? You're going to take the guy who was in Role Models and put him in an Ant-Man film? I'm like, that's not going to work. Even if there's jokes, it's not going to work. Somehow they made it work. Paul Rudd went through the training. He went through all the exercise that was needed. And they're now doing their shit, and he's believable in the role. Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne does a great job in this film, especially with her character going from someone who's very cynical and very, almost looked down upon both Hank Pym and Scott Lang, and eventually became someone who came to appreciate why they did what they did, and what led to their choices, and all three of them coming together as a team. And speaking of the cop fiance, who's named Paxton, Bobby Cannavale. He's definitely not a Barbie. Bobby Cannavale plays Paxton, who, look, you could say he's like a jerk, but to be fair, he's a cop who's very skeptic of Scott Lang. He doesn't trust anything he says because he's a thief, and he was shown to thieve again when things went hard. It makes sense. And his His ex-wife, Scott's ex-wife, is played by Judy Greer. Does a good job for what it's worth in the 3 to 4 scenes she's in. Abby Ryder-Fortson, like I said, does a pretty good job considering she's a child actor and a young one at that. But you know, she does a pretty good job at conveying the innocence and childlike likability, basically, of a little girl. Especially one who truly loves her dad. Then we get to Scott's friends. You got Luis, Dave, and Kurt, who are played respectively by Michael Pena, Tip T.I. Harris, who I'm assuming is some kind of rapper. Why else would he have to name T.I.? And I would say Anthony Mackie. David, God, it's hard to say this name. David Dastmalchian? I'll just go with that because I don't know shit about this guy. Yeah, I'm just looking at this guy's profile. Tip is a rapper. It's like a piece of dust stuck in there. I don't know what the hell that is. So yeah, you had that. You had a couple cameos. You had John Slattery and Haley Atwell reprise their roles as Howard Stark and Peggy Carter at the beginning of the film. Michael Douglas, why the hell am I skipping him? Michael Douglas as Hank Pym does an absolutely great job in the role. Mostly because he's Michael... It's like Samuel L. Jackson. He's Michael fucking Douglas. He can do no wrong in terms of acting. The guy is great. And from what I heard, he has always done great at playing the great characters. And you're probably wondering, I'm skipping a particular person. I'm skipping Corey Stoll, who does a decent job in the role, but that's hardly Corey Stoll's fault for the negatives of the character, in which there are some negatives. Sorry about that. So anyway, you have, and by the way, I forgot to mention earlier, Luis is absolutely hilarious. He's what helped make the film make the sequel as good as it was, because they like, okay, clearly people love the Luis stuff. We gotta have more of him because he's just so great at it. So anyway, what happens is, shit. Never mind. Okay. Good casting. The special effects are great, I gotta say. The special effects for the Ant-Man suit are very top-notch. And again, this is one of those things that... there been shrinking films before. Like, for example, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But the shrinking in that film wasn't nearly as great as, say, in this film, because it was an action film, and they needed to shoot things differently. And I watched behind the scenes. The way they shot things was very intricate. They had like 4 or 5 different set crews for different parts of the film. That's how complicated a process this was, but damn it, did they do a great job in it. Then, so yeah, you had the great special effects, great acting. It's a heist film, which you have to be very careful about how you do a heist film, because a heist film can either be very great, like Ocean's 11, or very poor, like Ocean's 8. Or very boring, I should say. This film is more on the side of very good, where it's not boring. And most importantly, it has characters that you're rooting for and characters that have personality. And I think that's what I like about this film, even though it's a heist film, not exactly the kind of standard action flick that, say, Iron Man was. This film definitely had things going for it, and it was just very, very good. And by the way, the cameo by Anthony Mackie as the Falcon was just priceless. I thought that was funny as all hell. So you had a lot of good things. The music was very heist music-like. I mean, you need music that kind of exuded heist and stealing and thievery, and sneaking and everything. And they had that. They had that in this film. So you had a lot of things going for it. By the way, I forgot to mention earlier, I usually mention this, the budget for this film, depending on the price, it was $130 million to $169 million. This film made $519 million, which was the lowest it's made in a while, but considering the kind of niche that Ant-Man was, you're not exactly surprised, and hell, it made its money back, so who the hell are we complaining? It's a success. Anyway, So we have, okay, so we have a lot of good things in this film. And also the film is short. It's been, well, not short, but it's shorter than some of the previous Marvel films. Pretty much most of the Phase 2 films. Actually, all of them, now that I think about it. This film clocks in at under 2 hours, which most of them clocked in at over 2 hours. This one clocked in at under. So, it had that going for it, too. Okay, so, are there any negatives on this film? I have to say yes. Even though I liked the idea of a heist film, thing is, you could kind of figure out where the plot's going. You can figure out what the plot's going to be. Very similar to the first Thor film. That was a fish out of water story that could have easily bombed. But it was a good story, but again, you know where it's going to go. With Ant-Man, it's very much the same thing. You know where it's going to go, but you kind of sit back and enjoy the story. Okay, fair enough. There are a couple things about it, though. First of all, I have to say this, is Corey Stoll as Darren Cross. Now, this is not Corey Stoll's fault. Clearly, he put his effort in to making this a good film. Trying to be a good character. But here's the thing. I look at Darren Cross, I can't help but feel like this is like a second-rate version of Obadiah Stane. Think about it. Obadiah Stane and Darren Cross have a lot of similarities. They're people who used to work for the former head of a company. In Obadiah Stane's, it was Howard Stark, and for Darren Cross, it was Hank Pym, both of whom were revolutionaries in their own fields. Then, in some way, shape, or form, the protege or partner, in either case, took over for the company. What the hell's wrong with me? They took over for the company. They're both bald, which is hilarious. They both want power, and they'll do anything to get to that power. They both can be charismatic and smiling, but both of them are not exactly happy people, so to speak. And they have their bouts of anger. They don suits that they create, that they meant to create mass market, or at least in the case of Darren Cross, but they don the suit because, of course, they want power. And, of course, the final action scene, well, not the final action scene, but, of course, what else am I missing? And, oh, yeah, he really wants to kill his competition, that being Tony Stark and Hank Pym. Yeah. And also, of course, the final duel, I forgot to mention, the final duel is between two people who are very similar. The Iron Man and Ironmonger suit, and the Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket suits. Yeah, I could see the similarities. This film does, in several ways, take after Iron Man, which you could say is a good thing, but it's like that film only came out a little while ago. It's like, why are you taking several steps from the films? And I understand you want to do things differently, and they do. They do things differently. But yeah, there's that. And here's the thing. This film doesn't have too much in the ways of flaws. I know some people will point out other flaws. In my opinion, it doesn't have too much in the way of flaws. Well, there is one other thing I could talk about, and that's the whole Hydra connection. Mitchell Carson, apparently he was the one that ordered the buyout of, not buyout, but he was the one that bought the Yellow Jacket suits from Darren Cross. And apparently Mitchell Carson has agents that align themselves, they're representatives of Hydra. And even though he says, oh, they're not what they used to be, it's fucking Hydra. And this is more a fault of the other films, even the sequel, rather than this film. Not one mention is ever made again of Mitchell Carson the Hydra people get killed, but not one thing is ever mentioned of Mitchell Carson, who more than likely was a member of Hydra, but got out of there before the whole collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D. So you had all those things going for it, and it's like, okay, you got a great setup for a sequel. But the sequel doesn't even touch upon Hydra at all. Maybe if there's a third Ant-Man film, it'll touch upon Hydra. Not here. Not there either. But, so yeah, that is a little bit of a thing, like, okay, you gotta capitalize on the Hydra thing, but they don't, which I think is kind of almost like throws it away, and it does beg the question, if they're members of Hydra, how the hell didn't the government get on their ass and, you know, and have them arrested, much like with Gary Shandling at the end of Captain America the Winter Soldier, or Gary Shandling's character, Senator Stern. So yeah, but like I was saying earlier, there's not too much in the ways of flaws. It's just not a balls-out amazing film. It's your nice, pretty good comic book film. Not meant to be anything amazing, but it has a couple flaws, obviously, but it's funny enough, it's well-acted enough. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. It's a good film. I know some people might shit on it because they fired Edgar Wright, but you know what? Shit happens, and sometimes if it's for the better, it's for the better, and in this film, it probably was for the better. Until next time, so, like I said, 8 out of 10. Tomorrow, guys, I will review Captain America Civil War, most likely in the morning, because I actually have enough time left over so where I can watch it now, instead of having to wait till the morning to watch it. So I'll probably review Captain America Civil War in the morning. Till next time, guys, be well, stay safe, have a good day, and I'll see you guys next time with the next review tomorrow. Till then, peace.